Hello, welcome to another video from earnped.com. I am Stevie B, happy to have you all with me today. Today we are enjoying some good old Migration 2023. So I am out here just outside of Cape Corinth. I'm taking on some level 12 young, some level 14 matures. Every now and then there's a level 29 or a level 33 in there. The 29s are a bit much, the 33s are a lot much, so I try and stay away from those, but occasionally it does happen. I hope you guys are having fun whether you're doing migration or not. We've got a lot to cover, so I've got a lot of videos that I've already made. I've got a lot more I'm going to be making, and I don't know what order I'm going to be releasing these in, but I hope they are all helpful for you guys. So today, the theme of the video is jump, 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 jump around, jump, 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 jump around. Why do we jump around? So, why do we jump around? Why is that? Why do you see people all the time in-game, in videos, in Twitch streams, jumping around like idiots when they're hunting? Notice that I am literally hopping while I hunt. Well, that is because it's something called kiting, and we do this to avoid taking damage and to keep our cost as low as possible when it comes to armor decay and fapping cost. And I pulled a level 30 Mulum. Isn't that cool? So, cool side note, there are some level 30 Mulums out here mixed in with the Longtooth, and I figured out that really the level 30s are almost as easy, if not easier, than the level 12 Longtooths. They're really not that bad. So that's cool because I'm getting a little bit of Mulum codex progression as well. So why do we jump around? You see this all the time. If you watch Bonnie streams especially, and you look at the JBK spy cam, especially when he's doing like the defense instances around mayhem time, you see him jumping around a lot. And there's a reason for it. It's not just to look like a complete idiot while you're playing the game. If you notice, the creature isn't actually headed where I am. The creature is headed to where I just was. If you look, I'm going left and he's going slightly to the right. I know it's really hard to see because it's so gradual. It's really hard to catch, but if you look close, he's not headed to me. He's headed to where I just was. So it comes down to game mechanics and how the game is programmed. Essentially, the mobs are trying to find you based off of an XY coordinate. So assume 2 dimensions, not 3. Assume that this is just flat Earth. And the mob knows my last known XY coordinate. So it knows where I just was on the ground. But when I'm airborne, for that brief moment that I'm airborne, the mob actually doesn't know where I am. So it heads to my last known XY coordinate. And then whenever I land, it gets a new XY coordinate. And it changes course to head to where the new coordinate is. So it's just enough of a delay that if you look very, very closely, you can see it. That they're not actually headed to where I am, they're headed to where I just was a fraction of a second ago. Now, you might go, well, that's really stupid. That really shouldn't matter that much. Well, you're right. It's not going to keep me from taking damage. I'm still going to get hit. They're not going to magically just miss me or not know where I am all the time. However, it is enough of a delay, that fraction of a second. If you add it up over time, it matters tremendously. No, doing it for one mob doesn't make a huge difference. But don't imagine one mob. Imagine that we do this over the course of 100,000 mobs, or 1,000,000 mobs, or 10 million mobs. Imagine that it's not a fraction of a second. Imagine that it's hours that is added up. So if you think that every couple of seconds is worth one potential hit, and that potential hit is worth some amount of decay, how much decay are you saving off your armor? How much fapping cost are you saving whenever you add up those fractions of a second? And when you add it up over time, it is quite a bit of money, and that's why people do it. That's why you see people do it, especially in the Mayhem defense instances, because every hit that they can avoid taking is worth a considerable amount. And if you add it up over time, it's a very considerable amount. This is the argument that I've made for lifesteal. I love lifesteal. It is one of the best investments that I've made in the entire game, is having rings that provide lifesteal. Because as I inflict damage on the creatures, I naturally heal. I naturally regen. Now it's only 1%, And yes, I would like to get rings and gear that allow me to have more lifesteal than just 1%. But imagine how much that lifesteal has saved me over the past 6 years. It is a tremendous amount of money when it comes to fapping cost. So the same thing is true of kiting, and the great thing with kiting is when you're jumping around like this, it can be fun. You can make it fun. It doesn't have to be annoying. But the bigger thing is it's free. Unlike lifesteal, which costs an arm and a leg, kiting is absolutely free. Anybody can do it, and it doesn't matter what level you are. It could be with puny creatures. It could be with level 500 creatures. It is absolutely free to do. All you got to do is hold down that spacebar and hold down one of your movement keys. Now, I tend to get into this thing where my hands aren't just perfect on the keyboard, and because of that, I end up running sideways instead of jumping sideways, and that doesn't have the same effect. It doesn't do the same thing. Running sideways, you do run a little bit faster than normal, but you're not going to outrun the mob by running sideways. Now, there are other things that you can do. There are some mobs that running sideways can be very beneficial on. There's other mobs that just simply running backwards can be beneficial on. There's some mobs that swimming backwards can be beneficial on. There's ways to swim backwards and up, backwards and down. There's all kinds of ways that your movement, when interacting with the mob, can make a difference in your gameplay. And most people do not put that much thought into it, and I don't blame them. One of the things that we don't get to say enough is the word fun when it comes to Entropia universe. I told one of the developers for one of the Planet partners a while back, I said, we're actually having fun, and that's really not a term that we use a lot. We talk about TT returns, we talk about loot composition, we talk about markup, but when was the last time you just had a conversation about how much fun you were having? So I'm having a blast. Somebody said earlier, I don't see why you're not boycotting this summer as well. Well, yes, I wish we had summer strong boxes. I think it would be in Mindark's best interest to put those back in the loot pool. I wish we had more ELM weapons dropping. I wish that we had Mayhem tokens in addition to the Unreal tokens, because the Unreal tokens are just so few and far between. I've literally looted one Unreal token so far, and it was from a level 4 adolescent outside of Chugs. But I'm also having fun with it. And if I can have fun with it, even with the lower markup availability, even with no boxes, even with no Mayhem tokens, even with the low drop rate of Unreal tokens, the fun is important to me. Very important, because the day that this game is no longer fun is the day that I quit Entropia. But there is a reason that we jump around. Now, as I'm having fun, sometimes I don't jump around. Sometimes I just run sideways or just run backwards or just stand still and enjoy the kill. The reason I decided to make this video is I realized I'm jumping around a lot. I'm doing a lot of kiting, and I wasn't doing it to save money off armor decay and fapping costs. I was just doing it because I'm having a blast. I was doing it because I took a 1-hour skill pill, and then I ate a 1-hour Easter egg that increases my reload speed, it increases my run speed, it increases virtually everything across the board. And I was just moving really fast, having a lot of fun with the hunt. And I just naturally started jumping sideways and kiting just because I was having fun. And I was like, that would be a really good subject to make a video on, because there's a lot of players that they see people kiting. They may even be doing it themselves, but they don't understand what they're doing or why they're doing it. They're just mimicking something that they've seen somebody else do. So I want to get this video out there because there are a lot of players that I think if they understand why people do the sideways jump, why people kite mobs to begin with, I think it would probably help explain it to people, and there might be more people that actually do it. And that would just save more people money, and that's always a good thing. Smarter, not harder, right? So, that being said, it's a very simple concept. Now, there are going to be players out there, especially super high-level Uber players, that say, well, yeah, that's true, but how you move does matter. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying that there's mobs that running sideways isn't very, very important with. I'm not saying that there's not mobs out there that swimming backwards and up or backwards and down is not super, super important. There are. However, I'm saying in general, whenever we're talking about mobs as a whole, whenever we're just looking at every creature in Entropia as a very broad class, kiting is probably the easiest way to deal with most mobs in a manner that keeps your fapping cost and your armor cost as low as humanly possible. Or I should say your armor decay as low as humanly possible. So it's a good starting point. Whenever players can get into the habit of things like kiting, Then they can get to know how certain mobs interact, how certain mobs move. That's whenever they can figure out what moves work specifically for that mob. There are some mobs in game that simply working backwards works really, really well. There's some mobs that simply running sideways works very, very well. There's some mobs that swimming in a certain way works very, very well. But let's start with the basics, and the basics is, why do we jump? Well, we jump for a purpose, because they're headed to where we just were, not where we are now. And if we add up that fraction of a second over millions and millions and millions of kills, that is a lot of time saved. That is a lot of time not getting hit, not taking damage, not having armor decay, not having to fap. And that is always a good thing. So guys, I'm going to leave it there for today. It's a little bit of a shorter video. I want to keep it simple if I can. I want you guys to be able to pack in as much entertaining content as humanly possible, so we'll leave it there. Head over to earnped.com, because when you earn, we earn. That's by far the best way you guys can help to support us. Simply use the links on earnped.com to go to hideout.tv. Hideout will see that you came from us and will automatically add us as a redemption option for your Hideout points. No additional effort needed. Guys, please support whatever service provider and content provider most closely aligns with your personally deeply held values, whether that's us here at EarnPed and our YouTube channel, or whether that's our friends over at Ludius.io or PedFlow or Entropia partners. We want you to support the services and content creators that very, very closely align with your personal beliefs. So please do that. Also, please hit all three of those buttons as YouTubers talk about. The subscribe and bell icon. That way you guys are notified every time we post new content. That way you guys are up to date at all times. And please take the moment. It's absolutely free. It takes 1 second. You're already watching the video anyway. Hit that like button. That tells us to keep making content and that you guys are still supporting us. And it tells YouTube to put our videos in front of more people. YouTube then finds people that play MMOs and real cash economy games and puts our videos in front of them. A lot of times it's the first time they've ever heard of Entropia. A lot of times they start watching the channel, they get introduced to the game, and then they end up playing. Next thing you know, they're at Camp Icarus. Next thing you know, they're at North Swamp Camp. And it just helps everybody. It helps us, true, but it also grows the economy, it grows the community, and that person may well end up being a friend of yours in game someday. So please hit all three of those buttons, especially the like button on every single video. It means a ton to us, and we greatly appreciate all the support. So from everybody at earnped.com, sip, sip, smack, smack, y'all know the rest. Take care, Stevies.